You're listening to The Dental Guys, episode 40. Our interview with Justin Moody of the Dentist Implants and Worms, part 2.
Hey,
let's talk about implant design and where you're. You said you were.
We love implant design.
But here's the deal: you were struggling with. You said you're struggling with picking a system or whatever.
Well, not necessarily struggling with picking the system.
You were,
but
weren't you, John? You just didn't understand.
Yeah. I'm like, what are all these?
Come up to Greenville.
What are all these shiny parts
Yeah.
in the container? No,
Should we do flat top?
So one of the biggest
External
X-Hacks, man. I'm X-Hacks all day. That's all I ever do. But we talk a lot about this question, and I want to know. I'm sure you're going to tell us what you think too, Justin, and I want you to, of course.
Are you going to explain both our points?
Yeah. Well, I just want to.
We're kind of there.
I just want to say.
You guys are pointy.
Well, here's the thing, and Wes and I we've talked about this for freaking ever. But okay, so the implant, all titanium, we know integrates. It works. That's not the issue. So let's get past that. There's no surface that's amazing that's going to make the huge difference. Maybe in the short term, all implants
maybe
work.
The first 4 to 6 weeks.
The questions are, how do you choose a system? And I think what it's come down to for us is we talk about, if we have a system that has a good connection, does that matter? If we have a system that has a better surface, does that matter? And is it short term or long term? The things that matter. I think we can all say that most implants at about a year out, you're going to see a lot of equivalency. I think that the question is what we've learned a lot from Steve Chu and Linkevicius and all that, and we talk about this on our show a lot, is soft tissue thickness. If you place an implant properly to establish biologic width, you're not violating that. You're placing an implant, where you have adequate amount of soft tissue to support it, then you're going to maintain bone. And so the bone level, we think, in the short term, Wes and I think both agree on this, that bone level is determined by soft tissue thickness. If you place that's why our immediates work so well, because we're putting them down far enough that we're not compromising blood supply, so we maintain bone. Now, there's discussion about surface, and there's discussion about connection, and I guess Wes and I both feel like the better, deeper connection that you have, this is a good thing. Platform shifting, I think used to be talked about a lot more from a standpoint of bone maintenance. I'm not sure how much it really matters with bone maintenance, but I do think it matters in soft tissue. And I do think it matters in terms of just ease of use, because if we're putting our implants a little deeper, a platform shift is very helpful for components, just being able to seat our components better and not having things hold up on bone, not having things hold up on soft tissue. So that's kind of where I've gotten to.
So let's specifically, we've established that we think that one, surgical technique is paramount.
Yeah.
We think that implants placed with respect to tissue, and what drove this science is immediate extraction, immediate placement really came on the scene, and people were like, why does that look so much better than my healed ridge surgery? And it's maintenance of volume. And with respect to the tissue, mostly to the buccal, because you were automatically saying, well, we might get a millimeter of bone loss, so we're going to put that millimeter below bone, and then you're like, we didn't get any bone loss. And we didn't get any loss of soft tissue, maybe 0.5, but not even clinically, it's negligible. And so when we use proper surgical techniques, does that implant matter in the beginning, in the first year? We don't think it does, but we do think long-term that a good internally connected, platform-shifted style implant. Now, platform shift is a misnomer in my book, and in my opinion, is that we're choosing an implant that has an internal connection that's offset from the external aspects of the dental implant. What we do on the outside is like, okay, so what type of thread design and what type of, design is really like, for me, a good design implant. Okay, so I like a good self-tapping implant because we do more immediates, okay? And if I'm doing more immediates, I get stability from the mesial and distal and the apical portion of my placement. I'm not getting stability in a premolar, which is one of my top implant magnets, from the coronal portion. I'm getting my stability from the apical portion. And so I want a little bit more of a V thread in that apical portion. I don't want my compression threads down there, okay? Now, if I was going to engage cortical bone, do I want a little bit of compression thread up there at that coronal portion, and then like a reverse bevel or something like that to minimize pressure on the least blood supplied area of the mouth, which is the cortical, the cortex, the part that 1 millimeter where that connection is. I don't want any pressure on that. In fact, I love it whenever I've just got like this laid in, platform switched aspect style dental implant when I place it, and I can just lay bone on top of that right there, put a little healing abutment on top of it, and it's just kind of sitting there being happy, and there's no pressure on that tissue.
Well, but the question though on like from that design standpoint is, which of these things matters? You know, which of these things matters?
Well,
does the thread? I mean, that's placement.
But
that's
placement more. But I mean, like he's asking me like what kind of design I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that's my design. Do we think that matters long term? Placement though.
Right.
That to me matters.
The placement is the most
now,
important.
I don't think that high insertional torque value is necessary, and here's why.
Yeah. That's an interesting discussion.
Because Astra Tech has a low insertional torque value. And the bone man, Lyndon Cooper out of UNC, he's done more bone studies than just about anybody. And he was an Astra guy for years and still probably does Astra. He's up at Chicago now. I don't know what he's doing. Iowa.
Yeah.
And so, I remember being enlightened by the man. And I was at a meeting, and I went up to him, and I said, so what you're telling me is if you don't have a spinner, you're putting a healing abutment on that thing? And he said, yes, sir, every day, all day, 100% success rate. Now, he said, now you're going to have failures. He said, but look, he said, why do a second stage surgery? Why re-enter? He said, we're doing one stage surgeries, putting healing abutments on this, and we're seeing better results. I said, so hand tight. He said, yeah.
Well, Mike Norton, where this came from us is, Mike Norton a couple years ago in Jomi wrote an interesting editorial about, we called it viable constraint, which is the idea
this
that
is where that all comes from.
The idea if we have a lot of people talking about torque and what is too much torque, what's enough torque, and then there's ISQ, and which is the better measure of where you're supposed to be. And his whole idea is that you've got these implant systems talking about torque it, get 70, get 80, get 90, and that his whole idea is that at some point excess pressure on bone is a bad thing. So especially if you're talking about a small diameter implant, if you're torquing that thing to 90 per surface area, you got a ton of pressure on the bone. So it really got us thinking about that low insertional torque is probably better. ISQ may be a better measure of that. So we look at our implants and we think, we want to have enough insertional torque just so that we can immediately load. That's really our only concern, I think, as far as design. We want to be able to immediately load.
And where are we at with that? Like, are we using insertional torque value as an indicator of stability? Because we know that ISQ and insertional torque value do not
always recommended. They're not always together.
They're not always together.
They don't correlate 100%.
They do not
correlate.
They don't. And that's why, Astra, why is it so successful? You're low insertional torque value almost every time you place that implant. The implants that I have now that I'm placing, your red manufacturer protocol suggested that a 3.0 and a 3.5 with this particular implant, well, highest you should be putting it in is 30. Because the manufacturer knows that you're going to increase stress to bone if you go much higher than that with that small implant.
So assuming that you put it in the right place, though, assuming you put it in the right place and it integrates, what matters in the long run is the question. What matters?
We don't know, but we think
does connection matter? Does laser lock matter?
Right.
Because I know you're a BioHorizon guy. That's what I've been placing. Myron Nevins would say it matters, but does it matter? What in the long run? What matters? Assuming it's placed correctly.
I get to talk to you guys from a little bit of above, not because I'm any better than you, but because I have more experience than you. Because I'm older, and I've been doing it.
It's called wisdom.
I've been dropping them for 20 years.
Yeah, man.
Right.
And I remember when I first started in 1997, my first implant I used was a Stern Gold machined implant. No surface treating, no nothing. It was a machined thread. Because how did I choose them? Had nothing to do with science, because hell, I didn't even know what science was yet. I did it because they put a consignment inventory in my office, and I could have screws at my disposal. So I've got those. They end up getting bought by Calcitech, and then they end up getting bought by Zimmer. So I end up at the tapered screw vents, which I love the implant. It was a great implant. It went from the external hex to the internal hex, and then I go to Mish. and I drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And I give up my tapered screw vents for external hex square-threaded parallel-walled implants. Literally, because I drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And so I go home and I apply this. Well, it's not like I do 50 a year. Like, I do a lot of implants. And then that year, you know, and I kept coming back to Carl saying, he goes, you know, it's okay. It's going to lose bone down to the first thread. And that's ingrained in your head. And then I started looking, I'm looking back at my older implants, and I'm like going, I don't lose bone to the first thread over there. But now I have this damn implant, you know, that supposedly is designed for load and all the other stuff. So I went to the tapered internal, you know, so the reverse buttress thread, and holy crap, what a different, you know, just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, you know, which is more similar to the tapered screw vent. And I placed those for years and years. And then, you know, laser lock came out, and I changed over to laser lock. But, you know, laser lock, you know, it may all be the only FDA one that is approved for, you know, that you can say you have, you know, some hemidesmosome attachment. I always love listening to Jack Ritchie talk about hemidesmosomes, because he'll say, he goes, anybody out there know what a damn hemidesmosome is, you know, and people are like, they're trying to think about histology, you know, and he's like, he goes, hey, folks, it's half a desmosome. And that's what he said. He goes, it's half a desmosome. And people, and he goes, and you know what's even worse than a half a desmosome? And, you know, people's not, he goes, it's a weak ass attachment. Yeah, I don't know if you guys listened to Jack Ritchie before, but Jack's just like,
tells it like it is.
He just like, you know, but he brings it down to, he goes, how important is it in this deal? He goes, it's important to create a seal if you get that seal. He goes, but it's a weak ass seal. He goes, but incorporate that with a platform shift that takes the, you know, so platform shifting. Without platform shifting, ideally, if you place the implant crestal, you have a junction where soft tissue bone, implant, and abutment all meet. All four things in the cosm of what we're trying to deal with. Oftentimes, we try to deal with them individually. But if you think about it in the cosm, all of those things meet at one little spot. So he talks about when you do platform shifting and you move the edge when you move the connection away from typically the bone level, now you have more of a soft tissue advantage than you necessarily do a bone advantage. And having done these and done the gamut of them, I will tell you that external hex to internal tapered, year, 3 year, 5 year, huge difference. Adding the laser lock to the same implant that came out in, I'm not gonna say the name. I'll get the date right, but I've had those in my office for 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, I got some pretty long-term stuff in there. But then 3 years ago, when they introduced the tapered plus, the platform shifted, beveled laser lock implant. Now I've only got them in for like 3 years. But I'm looking at this, and I'm maintaining bone. I mean, I'm actually probably growing bone over this the bevel, which looks great. Because for me, I don't place the bevel at the bone. I place it subcrustally. A little Astra-like, you know, a little bit Astra Tech-like. But what I find with this is the soft tissue maintenance.
It's unreal.
It is because and going to these meetings for all these years, I have watched it goes in waves. Like you have 3 or 4 years where bone is the issue, you know, like that is it, you know, and it's surface treating, and we're in this phase now where soft tissue is the issue. And you know, you think about, you know, whether it's veneers and crowns or whatever, you know, if you have bone, the papilla's there. If you don't have bone there, the papilla may or may not stay there.
Right.
You know, and you know the 3, 4, 5 millimeters, the more millimeters you go, the less likely you're going to fill that in. It's the same thing with dental implants. You know,
Right.
If you don't have that adequate bone, and you kept mentioning it, which is so important, is that it's the thickness of bone around the implant, and it's not about the thickness; it's about the blood supply.
It's about the blood supply.
Yeah. Yes, I can place something, and yes, I can get it to look good, and I can have a thin shell of bone over the edge, and it looks great, you know, with the flap over it, and it looks great at a year. Still looks pretty good at 3 years, but now I've been doing it 20 years. I can see things that I did 15, 17 years ago, and I'm like, why can I see the threads on that implant? Because I thinned the buccal bone.
Right.
But it didn't show for years.
Right.
You know, and it was all blood supply.
That's right.
Because the cortical plate has no blood supply.
Right.
You know, so if you don't stay within that cortical plate and give yourself a little cancellus to nourish the thing,
Right.
you're dead in the water.
Well, and that's where, again, like the next level from that to me is what's come out with Linkavicius in the last few years, which is not only what you're saying, which is absolutely true, but why is it that our immediates look so good? And his whole idea was he starts studying. So he says, okay, we're going to look at if we put an implant in that's platform shifted versus non, and we're going to put it in thin tissue and we're going to put it in thick tissue. And he found that when you put it in thin tissue, no matter if it's platform shifted or not, you lost bone because blood supply. So then he looked at it and said, okay, what if we add alloderm and we thicken the tissue? And he found if he added alloderm and thickened the tissue, he lost less bone than if he put it in thin tissue without alloderm. So the whole idea of the more blood supply, the better. And I think that's where now you get to the point of saying your subcrestal placement, not only is that better from a standpoint of getting bone around the implant, but you're getting more blood supply because you're getting the titanium out of the way. You're letting that tissue stay. You're maintaining the blood supply, which is maybe why your crestal bone, not only is it the connection, but not only is the connection maybe the laser lock, but maybe more importantly, it's the biology. The biology is working because you don't have titanium in the way of blood. And I think that that's the thing that the companies will say it's the laser lock or it's, and I'm not saying that it's not at all, but I think it's just that we've moved toward more subcrestal placement. We've moved toward respecting the soft tissue more. And if we respect the soft tissue, the bone tends to stay, and that's where platform shifting helps you. That's where subcrestal placement helps you. But it's maybe more about the placement technique than it is about the connection. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think how much do you think the connection matters in those situations?
You know, I've always been a you know, from past experience, I feel like the internal connection, you know, is definitely the way to go.
Sure.
And you know, obviously you can look at Morris tapered implants with long internal connections, and they do look good, and they're very kind to the tissue. I mean, those kinds of things. What I have found, you know, is all the things you talked about as my practice has progressed and my knowledge has progressed and my experience for the most part, like, you know, how are these things looking 5-10 years, and what I'm seeing with the protocol that I now use, more subcrestal tissue management, you know, keratinized tissue, often, you know, some of these cases, I'm going in and adding alloderm 6 months before I ever go in to do the implants.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what we're talking about all the time now.
Exactly right.
It's about the biotype.
Yeah.
You know, the patient's biotype.
And this stuff is not new. It's what's funny is that we've been talking thin biotype.
You know, I started putting this together again, you know, when I was going through Coyce. But he wasn't talking about implants. He was talking about teeth.
That's
Exactly.
what I'm saying.
He was talking about teeth. He was talking about, he goes, you want to assess risk factors in your cosmetic case. He goes, you know, everybody always knows, you know, they know that a high lip line is an aesthetic risk factor.
Right.
He goes, you know what scares me more than a high lip line?
Thin biotype.
Thin biotype.
Thin tissue, man. Thin
thin
scallop.
biotype.
Thin scallop.
He goes,
It's
freaking
nightmare.
He goes, give me a big smile with keratinized tissue, and I'll do the case all day long.
Yep.
You know, so for me, laser lock does this for me, and it's not on the implant. It's on the underside of my abutments. Because if you think about this,
So you're using laser lock abutments.
100%.
Okay, because I want to ask you about how do you deal with. Okay, so I get the science. I'm all for it.
Right.
So when you disconnect and reconnect, what are you doing? Because when you disconnect, are you like, say you take a healing abutment off, right?
Biohorizon makes a tool to re-roughen it.
Right. So you're doing that every time.
Every time.
Okay. Because
Every time.
that's the thing that, you know, I always wondered about. I know they make the tool. I didn't know if you were using
Every
that.
time.
Okay.
You're scarring the tissue.
Every time. You got to make it bleed just a touch.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, I rinse it out with chlorhexidine and go right back into
Gotcha.
the deal.
So-
But you know, the tool is only roughing, you know, where the old laser lock was. And I have better soft tissue maintenance, and I have less peri-implantitis. I have less thing. I mean, I think there's other things that cause these numbers to decrease, but
This is a factor you feel like,
For me,
it's giving you a little bit more.
It's just a little more.
A little bit more.
This isn't going to change your
right,
life at all.
Right.
This isn't going to say like, oh my God, I missed this.
Right.
No, but you add all those things.
Yep.
And
maybe it does make a difference.
And then that little bit of science there at the end, like I'm willing to spend the extra $20 on the laser.
And
lock.
the little bit of you got to anesthetize and you got to use a little tool, but you feel it's worth it.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
That's interesting because we've been talking about this.
Yeah.
That's why I chose BioHorizons, frankly, over a lot of the other companies because I started out placing Astra because of bone maintenance, and we looked at some good studies. But I thought, maybe that gives a little extra edge. But I've kind of questioned it again. The more we see these soft tissue thickness studies, I'm like, is the laser lock really the thing, or is it just that we're getting better? It's gotten to the point where Wes and I have said we'd rather place a shorter implant deeper to get more soft tissue thickness than we would place a long implant, because we'd rather drive it deeper, get it away from soft tissue, get a better biologic width, or alloderm, and that's been more of our focus, I think, in choosing implants. That's why when Wes got into placing this implant system that is, I guess you could say, a smaller name brand, that is
what
just
is it?
Argon Medical USA. It's K3. Is the name of the
Not
implant.
even familiar with it.
it's a deep conical connection.
Very new on the market for the United States. For Europe, it's been around for 20 years. So very deep conical connection. It's basically a bicon connection with a orientation hex at the base. So very deep,
Super deep Morse taper.
platform shift basically built in, just like an Astrotech has.
It's a lot like a BioHorizons in terms of placement. I mean, a taper and thread design, but it's much more like a very, very deep bicon, Astra type of conical, where you even have to use an abutment removal tool to get the freaking abutment off, like when every time, because it's that much of a friction fit. So that when Wes got to that, I guess the reason we started looking at that, or why Wes was looking at that, was that we started thinking, well, and that's where I'm right now. I'm trying out this system, and I have been placing BioHorizons, but I'm just at that point of wondering how much does the laser lock matter. And what you're saying to me is interesting. It's interesting. It makes me want to go back because I haven't used the abutments. I've read it, but I've read Ron Nevin's stuff, and it's like it's interesting. But there's a lot of people give Ron Nevins a really hard time about that because he's the only guy in the freaking world who's ever published connective tissue attachment. And they're like, oh well, Ron Nevins can get it to attach, but what you're saying is clinical practice. This is clinical practice,
and not.
It's not just some guy on a podium.
It's not hundreds, but it's thousands. I just have, you got to remember, my practice is so unique in the fact that it's referral-based. So I've got 88 docs that send me cases. So when I try something, like I try it on hundreds of cases.
Yeah.
And it gives me a little bit of a feel. So way more important to be the protocol you're moving to, way more important that than the laser lock. But what if you could have both?
Yeah.
What if you do both?
Right.
I mean, that's and some people are like, okay, well, I don't want to spend $20 extra on abutment. I'm just like, why?
That doesn't.
I know.
That's a non-issue. But for some people, it is.
Oh, so our lab, that creates, the majority of the stuff that we do are, if at all possible, screw retain crowns. We do zirconia on tie bases, and we spend the extra bucks on the tie bases with laser lock, and that's what we've done. And like I said,
I think when you start cheaping out on some of these prosthetics, like John and I've talked about this, I'm a real fan of OEM parts and things like that, and properly, like people post this stuff on forums, and you all know what we're talking about, is like, oh, my zirconium separates from my tie base, and that's like because your screw retain restoration is not designed properly.
Yeah,
because
your tie base,
it's off axis loaded. It wasn't
exactly
done right.
Well,
there's a million different things.
Right. Yeah.
There's a million different things that could happen.
But you can't cheap out on some.
Yeah, you can't cheap out, man.
Authentic connection parts, and this isn't because I.
He's on my side on this.
I'll be honest with you. This is not because. It's not because I'm a.
You're not speaking for BioHorizons.
I'm not.
now.
I'm a paid consultant. I'm a paid speaker for them.
Sure.
But you know what? I speak from clinical experience because that's what matters. Because if their stuff didn't perform for me in the clinic, then I wouldn't use them.
Of course.
Because mine's even. It's one thing to work on your own patients, but it's a different story to work on other people's patients. And if you use a system that ends up having problems, like not only do you have those to fix, which you have in your own practice, but you run the risk of losing your life.
In other words, you're saying you would spend as much as it took to get it to work right because it matters. So you're not just talking about BioHorizons. You're talking about I gotta have I gotta have something that works every time because it's not just your patients; it's somebody else's.
It's not, and I don't. I used to tell people all the time. Bio and Zimmer are and Implant Direct. They all share that connection. And it's fine. But they're all different tolerances.
Yes, they are.
And having a laboratory and taking. Sometimes people send you the analog or the parts they want you to use, and they buy them from Implant
Crete or whatever,
Trader or whatever, and all of a sudden you're like, and
there's a little play.
There's a little play, and you're just like, it's not worth it.
Yeah, man, no, it's not worth it.
Your stress level goes up. My butt gets a little bit tighter.
Yeah, because what are we talking? We're talking $10, $20 here. We're not talking about hundreds of dollars here. And if that's a screw loosening issue, if that's a fractured abutment or fractured porcelain, well worth it. But even with that all said, BioHorizons is not the most expensive implant. So essentially what you're saying is you could choose, and I know you're not speaking for BioHorizons here, but what you've seen over thousands of implants is the laser lock abutment, because I'm very interested in that, because I think we all agree a lot of these other things may be kind of equivalent, or at least you could argue that they may be about the same. But that's something that's unique. And from your perspective, it makes a difference. That's interesting.
And I do, and it does. You have to go back to your placements, and that is maximum soft tissue, using a healing abutment with the laser lock on it as well. So you got to go
start from the beginning. Start at surgery.
It starts with surgery. And the best cases that I have, obviously, are where you make an immediate screw retain restoration that you can you can build the tissue from the ground up.
Right.
Don't always get to do that, but those make the best because they've sat there. Those tissues have built. You take that thing off, and you're. That's the hardest part I have. I actually got away from making my screw retain temporaries off the BioHorizon Peak, and went to making them off the tie base with the laser lock.
Because you wanted the laser lock.
Because I wanted the laser lock.
Okay.
I was going to ask you that because
cost me more.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to make the temp on that tie base.
Takes more time
than it is the Peak.
Yeah.
I see a clinical difference when I take it off.
How interesting.
It's not. It's
because I've heard people.
We've talked. It's not earth-shattering.
Remember that guy was on the podium that's been doing tests between Peak and titanium.
Yeah.
And he's showing hemidesmosome attachments to Peak sometimes.
Right.
As well as titanium. And we asked him. We said, hey, what do you think there's a difference between, because we know that the tie base is harder to work with.
Look at leak efficient stuff with with attachment to the underside of zirconia.
Right, to zirconia.
Yeah, look at
exactly. So but I think that right there, like you say, even though it's not that you can't get a good result without laser lock. I know that's not what you're saying.
Could be the extra sauce that may give you just a little bit more of an edge.
It could be something that is. It sounds like again, it's worth looking at that because
being that you're a referral-based practice, are you restoring these as well?
Only about 20%.
So how do you control that?
Yeah, who makes the decisions?
Jesus.
I don't even know if we want to go down that road on the podcast.
No. Should we go off air on that one?
No. Here's partly why I helped develop Pro Smiles Dental Studio, and that I needed to get rid of the randomization and the crazy shit that was getting put on top of my implants and destroying and doing it. So what I did was I made it simple for my referring.
You sound like our oral surgeon who says this all the time.
I made it simple for my docs to do what I wanted them to do, and that was I created a laboratory where I could be more in control. And I give deep discounts to them to use my lab. And they think it's like because I want the money out of the lab. Well, it's a nice, small revenue stream.
Dude, it makes so much sense.
But the biggest deal for me is, say you had someone that did 1,000 a year, and they're all, 800 of them are going out into the real world. Like, if you prevented 3 or 4 failures because you got them to use technology and screw retain, get rid of the cement and all the other things, like man, what a difference it makes in my own
Sure.
practice, because I warranty my stuff from door to door. You
Sure.
know, and if they ruin it with cement or occlusion really isn't much of an issue, but if they ruin it with some other thing, when they come to me, I take it out, graft it, put it,
Right.
replace it, whatever it is, but then I put the restoration on the top, because I tell the doc, hey, you know what? I don't want this to ever cost you another dime.
Yeah.
But
you have a way of saying it that makes them feel good, but it's really about you.
It's all about me, because I ain't gonna do a third time.
Right.
I'm gonna fix this bitch like in my totally in my
Complete control.
Complete control.
And that's immediate loading is another good example, I'm sure of that. Like you got some people you work with that can immediate load properly. They understand occlusion, they understand for like a single unit. But I'm sure there's some people that you go, dude, you're not doing that. Like you don't know how to control occlusion. You don't know how to make an immediate temporary. Is that also an issue? I mean, do you do that?
It is. It's paramount. Like for me, I don't. I'm the only one that immediate loads cases. I'm it.
I was kind of expecting you to say that based on what we've talked about so far.
Isn't that where we're at? Because we are at a point in our practice and have been that, and I tell dentists that I'm teaching in this residency is that if you're referring a dental implant out, you need to be going to that surgery, because either you know what you're doing or you don't, or that surgeon knows what they're doing. And if you are diving into implant dentistry and you're still referring out some, I want to be in control of that.
And this is what drives us crazy.
We need to have a quick commercial break for Boyd's Wine and Spirits, Mount Rushmore Road in Rapid City, South Dakota, where
don't put a cap on that.
They're fine purveyors of adult beverages. Now back to John.
Well, this is what drives us crazy when we talk about. Okay, so we have this great oral surgeon friend who's in the middle of just hell with this, because he's got a great practice where he is a great surgeon, but what happens is that no general dentists they want to do the least amount of work possible, and they want to make the money. And so what happens is that they send the case to him. It says implant number 10, and now he has to make a decision. He knows that if this is his mom, he wants to do a nice immediate load, screw retainer temporary.
It's an unfair decision.
Let me just say this. We're down there working every single time.
Yeah.
We're
working on a different case.
We got our case going over here with him, and he's like, hey,
can you help me out, man?
Help me out of here. He's like, I got an immediate temporary over here, and he's like, I'm not really good at making that stuff. Can you go over and make it for me?
So he's having to make a decision in his practice, like you're talking about, where he just says, you know what? Rather than try to educate the general dentist who sent me this, I'm just going to take control of the case.
How many oral surgeons are doing this?
He has a lab. He has not his lab like you've got, but it's a lab that he has a very close relationship with. So his assistants are freaking better prosthodontists than most general dentists are. They come in, they snap an open tray impression at time of surgery. They make the temporaries. They deliver them. He comes in and checks them. And I'll tell you, it's really, really sad, because we go in there, we're working on a case, trying to do a really good job, trying to own it. We want to own it. We want to own the restorative. We want to be like, get out of here, oral surgeon. I don't want you to make my freaking temporary. I want to own the temporary, because I know how to make a temporary, because I've gone to learn to make a temporary. But 98% of the people he works with, he doesn't want them near the temporary. And it's just so sad.
It is sad, and goes back to what I said earlier. My goal in this implant continuum, in my implant pathway, is this is my new goal. This might be my new tagline. Like
right here in Nashville, you come up with it?
Yeah. Well,
Studio 1B, here we go.
But it really is. This is like, I want them to become the dental guys. I do, because but I want them to have that comprehension, because it is sad. I started a commercial laboratory to solve my problem.
Yeah, you took it to that level.
And obviously it provides me a lot of other things other than that.
Of course.
Anytime you decrease variables, you increase predictability and consistency.
It does.
So how many people do you trust? Let me ask you this. And you won't have exact numbers. How many people do you trust that are your referrals to fully, from step 1 to the end, do the restorative on a full arch zirconia hybrid? How
on
many?
A full arch?
Full arch.
3.
Oh, my word.
And you said you got 88 docs. There's 3.
You got to remember that there's probably only 10 of the 88 that even treatment plan that shit to begin with.
Good Lord,
man.
But three. So every other one of them, if it comes in,
Can I come and associate with you? 'Cause we would just-
I know,
we would
man.
stay right now.
Rock
Funny
and
you should
roll,
mention that.
man.
Let's go.
Yeah, funny.
Like,
Hey, you
let's
ever
sell
heard of
out.
Asheville, Nebraska?
Because do you want to just put implants in?
Hey,
Because
I got a
that'll be
Nebraska
fine.
dental
You know?
license. I'm not joking. It's sitting on my desk whether renew or not because it was somebody wanted me to do an educational thing in there.
Because like that's just so sad. I mean, I hear that you got 88 referrals. You got 3 guys you trust to do a full arch zirconia. We're like on the other
Dude,
side.
we're
We're like,
more,
please, please
more.
let us get in and get out of here, surgeon. Like, get out because you don't know how to do this well enough.
I'm not saying you don't.
No,
but
no,
I
no,
mean,
not you.
No.
But
Oh, I don't, but it's it's
but
I'm saying, like,
but you have to
Here
because
are-
it's the only way we're gonna get it done and actually have it not fail. Because
Here we are. We're studying about what's zirconium connection best and what
Yeah.
bond to the best cylinder and how we doing all these things and like setting up occlusion and all that kind of thing.
Listen. All right.
Yeah, we're talking about what cement do we
time
bond
out,
our
time-
cylinders for our
time
zirconia
out,
with?
Time
You know.
out. Time out. Here's what you two don't understand about yourselves, and that is you are not the typical dentists because they don't do what you've done. They don't go get the education. They don't care about those materials. They don't understand those materials. Like the majority of the docs that see me, they'd rather send it to Glidewell because it's all about price and stuff. Like you shake your head because I can't believe people still think that way, but that's still the
Yeah,
majority.
give me the C1 shade crown.
Yeah,
1970
they're all they're the same docs that owning a lab is enlightening because
Because you get to go in the model room and see it.
but
you
it's
know-
but it's more than that because you'd be surprised. The majority of the dentists, want a custom shade, and the only thing that the lab gets is a tooth. Okay, I want a little A1 here, a B2
No
here,
photography.
C1
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
And it
you
needs
can-
to
you
look
can-
perfect
you can
because
do
she
that,
really
right?
wants it perfect.
No.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So we created a manual that we give to the referring docs for this. They still don't do the pictures and the other things, but it's okay if they give us just a little bit more information.
They give you the information in an organized manner.
So creating the lab and doing these other things. What I did was I took the variables out. But I also made my dentist more profitable. And here's the deal: a good chunk of my dentists, when I bring them back, in 4 months, and majority of them have a healing abutment or a temporary crown on. The majority of them. I mean, there's still a few indications for burying them, diabetics, and
Sure.
but there's the majority of them are that way, and I would say over half the docs I work with, I remove the healing abutments. I scan the thing. I digitally send it to the lab. They make the abutments, the screw retain crowns. They send
And
it
who
back.
gets paid for that?
I don't give. I give it all to the docs.
Wow, that's
I give
a
it
board
all-
right there, bud.
This
get
is
it.
the same discussion we
So-
have with our
so-
surgeon,
so-
and he does the same thing. He scans it.
He
He
scans
he
it.
designs the abutment. He picks
the lab does
well,
all that,
right,
but
right.
yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he chooses.
He does all that.
Yeah,
all
he
of
still
that.
has to make all this decisions.
He even picks the shade.
Yeah,
He picks.
so do
You
we.
pick the shade.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's great, man.
Well, it's easy with it's easy.
And then they get paid.
The 3-shape. The beautiful part about the 3-shape is, I still provide
Right.
some clinical photos, but the 3-shape.
Shades all in
It
there.
actually has color.
Yeah, you
Right.
get
Yeah.
all the color anyway.
But-
the lab, even if I forget to take a shade tab with it,
Yeah.
Right.
they could look in the software.
But they
and-
get paid $2,000. The general dentist does for simply knowing how to turn a freaking screwdriver.
most profitable thing they do in their practice.
I mean, that makes me die
It
inside.
makes me cry.
I know it's the truth.
'Cause
It's
they're-
not new.
they're not
and
working
it's not like
hard.
I'm surprised.
I know.
It's just
Well, we
it's like,
talk about this stuff all the time.
No, but on the other side, I mean, you get a guy that wants to do a bridge. They see crown free money crown, so you got to kind of, make it worth their
Yeah,
while.
I teach them how. You send it to me. You talk about the bridge, and the lab bill and the time and the temps and all the other things.
Well, you're selling simplicity then.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, and I get it, and it's a
why I
good
do
business
it.
model.
Right.
It's why is it a good business model? It's not because it's the best treatment necessarily. Not that it's bad treatment, but it's a necessity for you to feel good about your implants. You're doing this because it's a necessity, not because you really. If you lived in the ideal world, you would work with, 88 guys who could handle full arch zirconia. And not only maybe they can't right now, but they're trying to get better and they're trying to learn, and eventually they'll get there. Hopefully.
For me,
Yeah.
if I never restored another crown, I'd be perfectly happy. If the group of guys that I work with
So
that I deliver highly aesthetic cases to, It is a joint. It's a marriage between the two.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
they know what they expect from me. I know what they expect from me.
Yep.
And
Aren't those the
it
funnest
works.
cases, though?
They're so
Well,
much fun.
They are the fun cases. You know, I do a lot of full arch. We do. It would scare it would scare most people to death how much we do. And I literally only have 3 docs that I allow, and even them. This is the sad part. Even them, I take the master cast impression.
Really?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Hey, because listen, all the problems lie in the master cast.
I agree.
For sure.
All of them. And
Do you do verification too?
no, I don't verify them because with the multi-unit, you don't need it. Don't need it.
Really?
No chance.
So do you tie them together when you make the impression?
0.
You don't
No
tie them
reason.
together and you don't verify.
No reason to.
For full arch zirconium?
No reason to.
Do you cement the cylinders at the time of placement? of
Do you
the
pick
final
up the
zirconium?
cylinders at the end, or what? What do you?
Lab puts all the cylinders in.
So you never
Never
verify,
verify.
and you never, and the lab picks it up.
The PMMA is going to be your verification.
Well,
If
okay.
If you're,
Well, yeah, that's-
if you're
okay.
So
So
the
the
only times
But
I've the only-
PMMA can bend.
Well, not if
You
it's
can-
properly thickened.
You can bend PMMA. You know you can bend PMMA. You can make it fit.
This is milled
You-
out of
do
a
you do a
pretty
one-screw
thick piece of
test on your-
plastic.
on
I
your
don't know how you're
PMMA?
gonna bend
You can
it.
bend it.
I mean,
Really?
Yeah.
do you do a one-screw test on your PMMA? I mean, are you like? I mean, when you say
Yeah,
verify,
take a one-screw test, put it on either side, and then take periapicals and look at the
like, how do you know? How do you know that
They've
it's
all
verified?
fit when you got to the end of it.
I mean, because I'm looking
Here-
at this
then
going,
everyone's
I'm
not
coming
maybe
from
here's
a
my-
world.
Are you just sitting there looking and like?
I'm coming from a world of I always verify because I know I can get PMMA down. If I really want to get it down.
Well, you could break the seal there because that bond is not that strong
Yeah.
enough. Your torque wrench will break that.
This is not highly scientific.
Yeah.
But it is all experience based.
Yeah.
Well,
What I know when I put them onto my multi units,
What a passive fit
What a
feels
fit-
like.
what a passive fit feels like. And here's the deal.
I can
you all
vouch for that.
and you
There
all
is-
still
there
ballsy.
is a
It's
feel.
ballsy, though.
No,
There is a
it's
feel.
not ballsy because if you think about this, you all know what
It's ballsy.
you all know. You all know what it feels like to screw in that's perfectly passive because it goes screw tight.
You're right.
Loose, tight.
You're right.
He
Loose,
says it
loose,
all.
right.
Right.
But
But
if
we're
it
not
goes,
like
if
that,
you
man.
go,
No,
you
I
screw
just
it in and it goes.
just makes me nervous. No, you're right.
Oh, that's
You're
bad.
done.
Yeah, you
You're
can
right.
do that.
Then-
And because you're the one controlling that, you can feel comfortable with that because
I
you
do.
know the feel. If for me, even though I know what you're saying, I always do verified just because it makes because with zirconia, to me, I'm worried, and I do zirconia. I like zirconia, but I'm always worried about if something is off, that zirconia is going to be the place that I'm going to see the problem catastrophically.
I think
versus
cement would break on the cylinder before you
well,
see the zirconium
I know, but to
break.
me that's a big deal. I mean,
Never
that's a
had
big
one.
deal. Never had a
Never had a
debond.
Never had a cylinder come off a full arch, ever.
Well,
That's 300 plus.
You got some secret sauce, dude.
It's really
Because
coupon.
even
There's a
Lyndon
coupon
Cooper,
for the
even
lab on
Lyndon
there.
Cooper
Yeah.
would say, yeah, I mean that's awesome. I mean, like props, man. I'm like because that's you've done 300 and no cylinders. That's awesome.
I've never had a cylinder.
How
What
long you
about
been
fractures? What about fractures? You've
Never
had
one
some.
fracture.
never had a fracture.
I've had full arch zirconia on cemented onto abutments fracture.
Okay, but
Okay.
never screw retain.
But never screw retain.
Dude,
I'm gonna show some tomorrow morning.
do you keep them all at tissue level, all the multi-units?
Yeah, I expect the edge of my multi-unit to be right at the soft
That's-
tissue.
I mean, I'm impressed.
That's
I'm
proper.
impressed.
That's proper.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
impressed.
exactly-
So
that's
what
where-
what could you Zirconzon mill? What kind of mill
What
do
kind
you
of
have?
milling machine do you have?
We have 3. We have they're all IMUS cores.
Okay.
I45s or I450s, 350s, and a 250.
What kind of zirconium pucks are you using?
Mostly GC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
mostly the Maris initial line.
Okay.
We're interested because we just usually, I mean, even like, again, Lyndon Cooper, who we have a lot of respect for, he talks about having some fracture issues occasionally, not a lot. And, I've personally never had a fracture of a screw retain, but, I know you hear about guys having it happen. So it always makes me a little nervous. But that's awesome. You guys have a system that's
So
working.
do you feel like
It's
that
working.
there's a move, seeing we're just talking about more about hybrids here, is that you're moving more to, are you still doing zirconium over zirconium, or are you starting to say maybe we need to do zirconium on the top, and then you hear like Picos talk about doing bar wrapped in acrylic on the bottom, that way we have a wear point? Because here's what my patients complain about the most with zirconium over
The
zirconium.
clank?
The clank.
The clank.
Yeah, and so I've got a patient right now, he says next year, he said, I'm going to have you remake my lower because I can't handle the clank.
Going back to education, every time I sell a full arch case, I tell people the downsides to it, and I say, hey, you know what? There's gonna be certain foods that get underneath there, over time. Especially all on fours where I have big distances between implants,
Right.
Your bone in those areas is still going to, melt away a little over
Sure.
time. So you get end up with some areas that you get some food in there.
Sure.
Yep.
They're going to feel a little bit heavy, but you're going to have the clank.
Mhm.
And, that's part of the deal. I've always gone with the thing with the like-to-like surfaces,
From a wear perspective.
Like material against
yeah.
like material.
So if they come in already having a hybrid denture, I'm going to make them one of the opposing one.
Gotcha.
I'm probably not going to go zirconia. I think I don't have a secret sauce. I'm not any better than anyone else, but I think that my clinical success with it is that very few people do what I do. That put the rest of that prosthetic treatment into it. You think about that. If I send this out to my referring base to do,
it's a good
and
point.
they don't have the knowledge that I
Right.
have. They didn't look for the parafunctional habits to begin with. They didn't do the.
They don't properly do bone reduction like you're doing. They
Right,
don't
right.
understand.
Maybe that's the whole thing.
They don't
here, is
understand
like it's full
it.
circle, comprehensive dentistry.
It's the comprehensive of management.
The control.
Of the case.
It's the control.
It is. So I'm not any better than that. I just have an idea of what it takes to.
Well,
to,
but
to
all
put
that
it
being
back
said,
together.
though, you are better because that's all, and I mean that in a good way. Like that's awesome. I mean that's awesome. Like I want to be like you.
Well, that's what I'm
I
saying.
want to be like you. He's
mentor
saying
me.
he wants to be like I want to be like you.
Yeah.
If I can say,
Please
and
mentor me.
I haven't had any fractures yet, but I haven't done nearly that many. But that's what I want to be able to say. I want to be able to say, dude, I've done 300 and I've had 0 cylinder debonds, I've had 0 fractures. Because we go to lectures where we see it, and people are always. I get to the point where
But I think
we've
that's
talked
good
about
that we see it because
Yeah,
they're showing
yeah.
us our failures, which is what you said you need to see.
Right.
Yeah.
And I preference that with these 300 they came in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's
you
where
know?
ours
so,
are.
So I
Yeah.
don't,
You don't have a ton of time.
I don't have 5
yeah,
years.
but but still, that's awesome.
I don't have any 5 years. So we'll see how it goes. Have I lost some arches from
implant failure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm not saying I'm 100% success rate. I'm
Right.
just saying I haven't
But
had.
that's not been your problem.
Yeah, like
the
last year.
zirconium.
Last year I had one screw retain debond, and when I look back at it, it was an immediate molar. I chose one root over the other. I have a little bit of a cantilever to the one side. That's what broke the bond.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was me.
I'm
And,
with you.
and it wasn't the material. It wasn't
Right.
anything else.
It was restorative.
It was restorative,
Yeah.
because I put it in a biomechanically compromised position, and
Yeah.
and it failed, and that's how it, that's how it
What's
failed.
what's your minimum number of implants on the maxilla for zirconia?
4.
4. You doing
Really?
a lot of 4s? Or would
I
you say
try not to do all. I try not to do 4. I'd rather do 6.
You like 6?
But
That's what we usually do.
But the fact is that not everybody wants to do a sinus augmentation.
Sure.
I still
Angled implants?
Oh yeah, they're angled.
You're doing angled,
You're
though.
doing angled.
Oh, 100%.
Short
Yeah.
implants in the distal.
If I can put them in, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
I'll put a 7.5 back there. I'll do the one implant that I use outside of the bio is the Keystone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The big maxes.
Yeah, the
Max.
VMAX.
Yep.
Yep. I will use those. They have a place.
What about 4x6s in the
I
anterior?
used Tuesday. I used 2 VMAXs in the back. It was I took out all the teeth, and my plan was to put something in the molars. And generally, it's generally I like the palatal root because I'm offset.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Um,
Sure.
A lot of times I can put a 5.8/9 or 5.8/7.5 in
Yep.
there, bury it nice and deep.
Is it?
But what happened was, I had poor bone quality, lost the interceptal bone, and I was like, all right, am I going to turn this into an all-on-4 case? But it was opposing real dentition, so I got huge force factors, and I was like, you know what? I reached. I put I think an 8.7 on one side and an 8.9 on the other.
Yep.
And I still
So
immediately
you're doing
loaded
that
it.
Love it.
sometime too.
Love
Yeah,
it.
and that's
Oh,
a
it's
great
perfect.
that's a great
Great.
plan.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think 6 is probably another reason why you've had success because you're not trying to
not-
push 4. You're trying to do as many 6s as you can. I think that's awesome.
You know what? I like all on 4 when you're talking about a medium build to small build person that's been in dentures for 20 or 30 years. They got no bite forces. They
Right.
got nothing.
Dentures are unworn.
They
Yeah.
got nothing. They're coming to me with so minimal forces that I'm all right. But,
Right.
you walk in there and you look like you played for the Dallas Cowboys. Like, you ain't getting 4.
No.
Right.
You're going to get as many as I
Yeah.
can possibly humanly
Yeah.
put in you.
Yeah, we're
you know?
engineering this.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna over-engineer it, but the majority of it is 6/6,
Yeah.
maybe 6/5, depending on what it is. But in the mantle, if I can go behind the frame or in the molar spots on the maxilla, every time.
You think we need to be replacing our screws in these full arch restorations once a year?
Yeah, how often do you think screws
Prosthetic
should be
screws.
replaced on these?
Because there's some studies out there showing we need to be replacing them
Once
a
every
year.
at least. Well, I think I said that with
What-
3.
yeah.
Every 2 to 3.
Yes.
But I don't.
Is
What do
there
you
that
do?
much
What do you do?
stress on those screws?
Well, there's
the little pro screw. I mean,
They're-
if you dropped
they're
it on
not-
this carpet, you'd
you
never
wouldn't
find
s-
it.
No,
Yeah.
I know,
It's a
but
gnat.
it's a titanium. I mean, is it getting stressed that hard?
It
where
depends, I think, on going back to like how accurate is your fit.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
think if you're truly passive, it's probably not a
Probably
big deal.
fine.
But that's
But
always
should
the
we
thing.
be taking these off from a hygienic standpoint? If we do take them off, I mean, most all of our screws and prosthetic screws are titanium. Do we put that same screw back in?
Here's my protocol. Once I seat the thing, I see him back. I see him in 24 hours, and I see him in 1 week, and then I see him in 1 month.
Okay.
Just to see just to check their occlusion, because oftentimes they're going from something they never had to something that they now have, and want to check it. But then at 6 months, I take them down. And really, it's to judge the patient's hygiene.
I think that's great.
That's really
Good protocol.
and-
what their
and-
interval needs to be.
And it is because
Right.
it sets the tone for how
If it's
little.
whistle clean, man, well, we
and
do
the
it
fir-
here.
and the first one at 6 months is still on me as part of the treatment.
Yep.
And anytime I take it down, I replace the screws.
No.
I like that.
If
I
I
like it too.
if
I
I
like
take
that.
it down,
Take 'em off, that's good.
if it comes down, it gets new screws. There's no.
Yeah, that's
there's-
another thing that's
there's
not
no
worth
difference.
cheaping out on. That's not worth
and you'd be
cheaping out on.
surprised how many people want to like ultrasound the screws and use them
No,
again. I'm just
don't
like,
do that.
I was like, holy
It's
shit.
not worth it.
It's not worth that.
Not worth
You
it.
know?
If it comes loose, now you got a problem.
So you take it down. You take it down, and you see like 3-week-old lettuce in there. You're coming in every 6 months, and now after that, I charge $500 to take them down.
To disassemble it and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, because
Well, you think
Well, the
about this,
screws are
it's-
$20 each, so I mean,
it's chair
geez.
time, and I tell them, I said, listen, think about this as real teeth, and you're coming in twice a year to get your teeth cleaned. Actually, you're a perio maintenance, and you're coming in every 3 months. You're gonna spend the same amount of money.
Yep.
To guarantee it, and I need to see your screws. I need to see your bone level. I need to see your tissues because.
Sure.
And I tell them, I said, this is a partnership, man. I said, we got 40-50 grand wrapped up in these projects. Like, it's as important
Yeah,
for
you're
me
not
as
done.
important
You're
as
not
for
done.
you.
Yeah.
You're not done. You're
No,
never going to be
never done.
And if you take that big break away from me, like if you come in here, and I've turned patients down, they come in, they're just like, I want rid of these teeth. I don't ever want to screw with them again. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, I can take care of what I call real tooth problems, and that is decay and pain and root canals and things like that. But if you want me to fix you, I don't care how much money you have. You want me to fix you, but you never want to come back and see me, then I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not-
doesn't exist.
I'm not the right dentist for you.
Right.
And there's plenty of other people that'll do that for you, but I'm not the right dentist. And I don't care if you. I don't care if you disappear for 5 years and that that you'll repay for it. I'm not doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to.
Yeah.
This shit stays. It's so good if it's just done.
Right.
If it's just done right.
Yeah, you got to change the oil in the car, man. It's just
Yeah.
it's simple stuff. We're not talking about redoing the case. We're talking about preventing it from needing to be
preventative.
They're
redone.
paying
Yeah.
for it too. That's
Right.
the thing. Is like how
But
people
you
are-
talk about education. You have to educate them on the front side because
almost definitely.
anything on the back side is an excuse.
That's
That's
exactly
true.
right.
That's
Good
It's,
point.
it's an excuse.
It's a good point.
You know what I have in every one of my offices is a great big laminated paper that Clear Choice advertises, and I'll tell people, it's like, have you heard of Clear Choice? Well, yeah or no, and it's like, I need you to read this again before I come back in the consultation, because I want them to read that, and I want them to know, because I'm educating them about them, because then when I come in and tell them, like, listen, when you see the ad on TV, you don't get your teeth the same day you walk in the door. I don't care what they are. Like, you do get your teeth in an hour, in a day, on some day, but it's not the first time they see you, nor the second time they
Right,
see you.
right.
And I said, if you read it, and then I have the bottom highlighted, I was like, read this. They themselves, it's just a play on words for the advertisement.
Exactly.
But if I was to not show them that, then on the backside, it's like, well, why don't you do this? Then it makes it sound like, well, I've got an excuse. Well, they're just lying, this and
Right.
that. Like, no, I'm going to tell you about it on the front side, and then I'm going to tell you what I do differently.
Exactly.
Or I do it the same way. It's just I don't advertise that I can give it to you, in the same day.
Yeah.
So it's all about the education of the patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's super good.
Man,
it's good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
we got 2 hours. We got 2 episodes.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
We'll chop
Yep.
this in
Yeah,
half.
I mean,
Alrighty.
Yeah.
One's about the one's about the dental guys, and the other one's about the implant
Yep.
science.
yeah, man.
It's good
Yeah.
stuff, man.
Um,
Great podcast.
Well, thank you guys for stopping at the booth. This has been
It's been awesome.
this is a great podcast.
Great podcast.
It's been
Thank
good,
you.
Hey, what's-
man.
It's a good podcast because these 2 yahoos had nothing to chime in on.
No, whatever. So, all right, I got a final question for you guys then. So, since this is a 2-parter, what's your favorite song, and what's your favorite song? Don't speak at once.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm gonna need a second. That's really tough for me.
Why does this stump people?
Foo Fighters Everlong. Done.
Oh.
Man.
Foo Fighters Everlong.
Yep.
And
What's
Hold
on
I'm
what's
pulling
on your
up-
playlist?
I'm
What?
pulling
What's
my
on your
phone right
playlist?
now.
oh,
I'm
let's
looking
see.
at it right
I
now.
see 99 Luft balloons.
Okay,
No.
right now. John knows that I listen to.
Bitch better have my money.
I listen to a lot of techno music, Daft Punk, that type of thing.
All right, I like Daft Punk.
There's
shit.
an unknown
Who is this guy?
artist called Approaching Nirvana, and there's a song that I've listened to probably for the last year, and I just love it. It's called 305.
That's your pump-up song.
That's my pump-up
Approaching
song.
Nirvana.
Yeah, 305.
Sounds awesome.
You do that before implant surgeries. Put that as
Dude, let me just tell you, I run. I listen to that before we get on the podcast.
Yeah.
My wife can vouch. My kids.
up.
There's a song that they love from Approaching Nirvana, and I think it's.
So that's your jam.
Yeah, man, it's my jam, man. I love
All
it.
right, well, we're
So,
gonna
there you
Yeah,
go.
well,
take that for a mix here.
if
and
you
see what happens.
guys know of anybody that's excited about implant dentistry and wants to come practice with me, like I am,
I want to be one of the
I know, man.
like only dentist that does his full
Right.
arch cases
Oh,
and
man.
puts some implants in and works with him.
Ugh.
yeah, well,
Sounds like a
seriously-
great opportunity.
I mean, seriously,
I've
well,
got a Nebraska dental license on
Well,
it, for
South
goodness
Dakota,
sakes.
the implant center's in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I'm looking for like for me, I'm a 5-day-a-week guy. Unless I'm out doing this or
Sure.
teaching or whatever. But I mean, that's my deal, and I have so much. My practice has grown so much that I can no longer do everything. And now, what I've always prided myself on is getting them in and getting it done and stuff like that. Is like I'm starting to have wait lists and I'm struggling to be able to go do the things that I want to do because
You're
back
blessed.
to, and I
Yeah.
I am blessed. I am so blessed. I have such this unique market and all these people that trust me. And I used to be like all referrals. Now it's still about 85% referrals, but that 15 are friends of people that
Yeah.
I've seen, and they don't whatever.
Word of mouth.
Well,
man.
and you also
and-
become the problem solver.
Well, you hang your shingle out, says you're the dental implant, the dental implant center.
Yep.
You're the only ABOI diplomat in the state. Like when there's an issue with an implant, they come to me.
Yep.
Right.
And I, just like you guys,
You're
like
an authority.
whether it's 75, whether it was placed in 1975 or
Yep.
15.
You gotta
like,
figure it out.
You got to figure it out, and it's all the same, really. Like,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it is. It is.
you can still buy parts, you can still find it. I got all the driver. I mean,
Exactly.
it's not that hard.
No, no, you just got to learn it.
You just have to step back and look at it and
Yep.
say, okay, how do I problem solve
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Because
man.
Do I
it's
need to
just
buy a tool or do I have a tool?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that simple. And when they
Yeah.
come in, I'm just like, listen, I may not know exactly what it is right now, but I said in a few days and a few phone calls, a post to here, look
Yep.
here. I'm going to figure out what it is. I'll find out what parts I need. I'm going to figure out how to access it and do the things, and I'll fix it. It might not be cheap. I might not be able to fix it overnight, but at the end of the day, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And this job
If
is-
not,
this
just
job-
jerk it out and start
I know.
over.
And sometimes,
That's right.
sometimes,
We got more where that came from.
and sometimes,
Sure, fine.
sometimes you do that, But I want somebody to come in and literally, I want somebody to come in and do 75-80% of the screws that I'm doing and do the restorations on them. And for me, I want to practice a couple days of the week, and I want to be back I want to see 2 patients in the morning and 2 in the afternoon because I want to take amazing photography. I want to take amazing video, to build my stuff. And,
Yeah.
and I find myself like I do all these amazing cases all day long, but like I don't have time to take
Yeah.
all the photos. I don't have
Takes
time to
time.
video because
Yeah.
I got
where I'm
the
at right
next
now, man.
I got
It's
the
so
next
hard.
one behind it. I got
Right.
It's
Just gotta
so-
keep rolling.
It's so hard, you
It
know.
is, man.
And
The
even
girls
when I
hate that, man. They hate it when you're like, I got to do a video right now. No, you don't have time.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
You know?
hard.
so I
It's
see
a good problem to have.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
got all
hard.
these cranes with my video.
Yeah, you just
cameras.
put
It's
one in.
like,
Just put one in, dude.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, it just got to be, but it still takes.
It takes time.
It still takes time, I mean, inevitably you get ready to do that. Card's full. It's not full. Where's the card? It's like, it's something else.
Well,
So,
it's awesome. It's a great problem to have. It's a good place to be, man. I mean, although it's a stress, it's a good stress.
yeah, for sure.
You know,
I wouldn't. It took a while. I mean, it took a long. I started this practice from scratch in 2008, and I beat on every dentist door in 4 states to beg them to give me 20, 30, 40 minutes at lunch to talk to their team about, do a lunch and learn with them about implant dentistry.
I don't know if people do this.
That's what you got to. That's
Yeah.
what you got to do.
Yeah.
I've been every single person that sends to me. I've been in their office. I've done the lunch and learn if they'd let me. I've done those things, and that's how I built it.
Yeah.
And I provide good work, and I tell them all. I said, hey, you know what? Every once in a while, we're gonna have a shitbird. I mean, we're gonna have one. I mean, most of the time, it's a patient, a risk factor that I either didn't weigh heavy enough, or sometimes they're not.
It was worse than what you thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes
They
say
smoke 6 packs instead of one.
They say they're a controlled diabetic, or they say they're not diabetic, but
Right.
in fact they're an undiagnosed diabetic.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, there's things.
Yeah, things happen.
And every once in a while, you may not be on your best that day. But, we do most of the stuff in the aesthetic zone guided. Part of the sauce for the full arch stuff is if they're already a dentulous, I guide them 100% of the time.
Yeah, I think it's good.
And if you
Heck
think,
yeah.
and if you think about that, I can maximize my AP spread by moving my implant as close to the sinus as I can.
That's great.
Maximizing my list. The BioHorizon makes an 18 millimeter implant,
Yeah.
and the 3.8 and the 4.6, which
Perfect.
I use for my angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it saves time too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better on all sides, really. It really
all
is.
those cases are
I
quick.
think the thing that would be a great podcast to talk about is how you teach communication, or could it even be taught? And John and I have talked about this before, is that sometimes I think you either got it or you don't. And it's obviously you have
Communication
the knack.
between the specialist and the general.
Well,
or
between the patient to the patient, a
and
lot
the
of it's to
doctor.
the patient.
Yeah, but see, you went already in and you sold the dentist, but that's no difference than you went in and spent 20 or 30 minutes at lunchtime, about selling the dentist. That's no different than selling a patient.
Right.
A widget is a widget is a widget. I think in some respects, it's just how
Yeah,
what
so we
product
need-
are we trying to sell?
So we need to have you on to talk about that. We would love to have
Sure.
you on
yeah,
sometime.
because
sometime.
you are an
Yeah.
expert at that.
Yeah,
at
because
communication.
you've obviously done
taken
that.
it.
You don't just have clinical skills, but you've learned the verbiage
Right.
that gets the yes in a positive way. Like you've taught people, you've learned how to get people to do the best thing for themselves, and we love to talk.
And you're
more
training
about that.
dentists
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
And I guess really the question is that is there an innate thing in a person when they're bent by their parents and their upbringing or whatever
Or can you train it?
or can you train it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are people that possess the skills; they've just never been able to unlock it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's an inherent group that it's just not possible. Like I've had associates. The one that comes to mind, Gabe know, is he was a competent dentist. I mean, he did good work. I don't see his work back. I mean, he did a good job, but he couldn't communicate. So he never produced worth a shit. He would leave his mask on, his loops on.
Oh,
He would talk into their ear hole. And I'm just like, hey, take all that shit off your face, sit in your chair, wheel it to the foot of their chair, look them in the eye,
Be a human.
and tell be a human.
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
human about it, and just say, hey, Miss Jones, you need this. I know it's a lot of money, but this is what you need.
Yep.
The good news
That's
on that
it.
topic,
Just be a
though.
human.
Yeah.
The good news on that topic is it doesn't matter whether you're selling dentistry, you're selling dental supplies, you're selling cars. There is a gazillion books out there.
Right.
I'm going to boil it all down to just there's about 4 different personality types. Each one responds to a different set of circumstances. If you can identify those types, and sometimes it's hard because they'll have 2 or 3 of those traits, but one is just a touch more dominant than the next. And I remember a long time ago, if you can find out what makes a person really, really happy,
Yeah.
and you can find out really what scares them, you got a really good chance of trying to find that sweet spot in the middle. But if you go in there and you're talking too fast and they don't understand what's going on, you ain't getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Or if there's just no passion behind it, people can tell by looking in your eyes if you're passionate or not, right?
That's true.
You know?
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, but there comes a time when you just can't have that much passion when you're like, lady, you got a small filling here. You need to come back in. It's like,
Right.
it's your problem, not mine. I'll get to it if you want I help. I'm here to help you, but you got to show up.
Yeah.
That communication and education piece is vitally different. You both know classmates of yours that you've seen their hand skills. No chance you're going to let them work on you.
Absolutely.
But you go to your reunion, and he's killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, patients out the wazoo, he's killing it. Well, you know why? It's not because he's doing great dentistry, because our patients don't know good from bad.
Right.
It's because he's a communicator.
Yep.
He knows how to talk to him. He knows how to gain their trust, and that's the key. So if you think about that, I've always thought, I was like, yeah, maybe one day this, the referral thing will dry up, and I'll go straight to the consumer. Well, it hasn't. But I always think, like, I'd like to know how many full arches I could do if I did a clear choice evening where I went to the Holiday Inn and rented a room like this.
Right.
And my skill.
Yeah.
Like my skill, and then my team, answering the financial questions and the things like that.
Right.
Like I think I could build an all full arch practice based upon my clinic, based upon my communication skills.
Because I think that it's true because of what we've been talking about. The
That's
reason
a
that you
podcast
did
thing right there.
the reason you did 300 arches is not. I mean, some of it's your referrals, but from what you're telling us, it's not that your referrals have all this crazy knowledge. Is that you've got good systems and you got good communication. And so, yes, we need to have you on, and we'd love to just dive more into, especially when you have an associate come in. What's the system that you go through to try to get them to get there? As much as you would want to share about that. Yeah, a lot of prayer, a lot of cussing. Yes,
Right.
all the above. So
Right.
we'll have to get you on and really dive into that, because this has been awesome to kind of hear what you are passionate about. It's very cool. But that other side of it is something that we talk about a lot, and it's sometimes more important than we're passionate about the clinical skills, but like you say, you can be as you said it earlier, you can be as awesome as a clinician, but you're not doing any business because you can't explain your way out of a paper bag. That's the other side of the coin. You got the guy who's killing it, who sucks, but then you got the guy who can't get dentistry done, but he's really got all the skills. So you got to have a little bit of both.
Yep.
And hopefully you get the best of both worlds. If you can get the best of both worlds, that's the golden goose, man. The practice that's high level clinical skills. That's where we wish corporate would go. It's like it has. You could take all the marketing and the advertising and the good things that can bring if it's backed up by good quality. But it's just you don't usually see those two things together. It just doesn't happen.
Not
No, because I
much,
think they got to rely on folks that don't have put the investment in to get to that level.
Yeah.
And you
Not
can't
everybody's got the drive to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Flying to Seattle 9 times to do, the Coist deal. It's $6K a pop.
Yeah, man.
Plus a 5-day-a-week guy. Like, I got to leave Wednesday so I can do the Thursday,
That's
Friday,
us, too.
Saturday.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And then I go to the symposium because I want to become a mentor. Then I take
Right.
the mentor exam, and then
Yep.
I go out there and teach for free. And
Right.
I'm just like,
And your patients, like you say, don't know
They
what
don't-
They
that
don't
really
they
means.
understand
benefit
that.
from it, but they don't
know.
They don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't
You're
know.
not
Yeah,
going to.
they think you're taking vacations.
But
Right,
they,
right.
Like,
Yeah.
where's he at this
Yeah,
week? I
it's a
can't get in to
business-
see
a
him. Oh, he's in
business trip.
Seattle.
Yeah.
But that's what I think. I know for a fact is what it makes my, my full arch and
Your
my implant
success is
practice.
proven.
It is. It's
Through your education,
Yeah.
which
Right.
is where all this conversation started.
I couldn't imagine doing full arch without the other piece.
I
Like
totally agree. I totally
like,
agree.
like,
Yeah,
it's
that's why you're doing it.
it's
That's why you're doing it.
But it's because there's like some of it right there. Like if you look at that, like you're like, oh my God, like how do I know where a video is? How do I know where the incisal ledge is and how do I know all these things? For me, I look at it like, if I nail it, like in the full arch, if I nail it in the conversion, like if I love the way their teeth look in my conversion, like I putty index that at the time of surgery. I putty index it. I send it all to the lab, and then I skip all the steps.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I go
Yeah.
straight to the
Yeah.
PMA,
Yeah.
and then 3 weeks later I go straight to the
And
EM.
your temp is a verification too.
It's all
your
verification.
conversion's a
Yeah.
verification.
So you take what some people, like I understand Glidewell's manual because they need you to go through all those
But
steps.
they're marketing to a different
Lowest common denominator.
I know, but,
Yeah.
but the deal is they know that if they don't have them do all these verification steps, that the end result doesn't work out.
Right.
You know, and for me, I've done all that in my mind, and I've
Right.
created it in the front side. And I was like, man, if I nailed it at the time of surgery, if I nailed these things, like I'm gonna take preliminary impressions, and I'm gonna do all this stuff, you know, while they're still sleeping and all this stuff, because when I see them in 4 months again, I mean, I see them plenty before then, but when I see them there, I'm taking that down. I'm trying the PMA in, taking a new final impression so the final one has
pick up
good,
the soft tissue.
Yeah, to pick up where the new position of the soft tissue is. Like, you think about what you charge for full arch and the restorative phase of it. I have 2 30-minute appointments. That's crazy money.
It's crazy money.
It's
Crazy money.
And I will say, and it is well worth it, because what you got paid for is what you know.
For sure.
And it's
That's right.
different. It's a different mindset.
Right.
You didn't get paid for procedures. You got paid for what you knew,
Right.
because somebody else could have done the same thing in 9 appointments and maybe not gotten even the same
Right.
result.
Right.
Because, you know, I look at what I paid for Coist. Coist probably cost me $400K. Between tuition, travel, and lost wages for 12 trips to Seattle.
Every bit of it, man.
Every bit of it.
Could even be more. You know, it's hard to put that on there, but
Yeah.
I'm recouping it later.
Exactly.
right.
And not only recouping it later, but you're getting predictability. You're going to sleep better at night. You know
yeah.
that your patients are
For
not
sure.
coming back the next day because they broke another tooth off the freaking conversion prosthesis because you can't control anything. You know, so it's
Correct.
all the stuff that makes your life where you actually want to do more of it
Yep.
because you did it right from the beginning.
For sure.
So yeah, you got to put things in order.
Yep.
And it starts with restorative. Starts with knowing how to make a
Restorative-driven.
you got to know how to make a denture. Where does 8 and 9 go? And if you can understand that crap, putting the screws in is easy stuff. Really, I mean,
sure.
you just got to know it's what you know.
Yep.
So that's awesome,
Cool.
man.
It's good stuff.
Guys,
man.
thanks so much
Hey, I
for stopping
appreciate
in.
you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
I think the best part about this damn Voice of Dentistry is the people we got to meet.
Yeah,
It's
no
amazing.
question.
So,
No question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well,
So
from,
check you guys out at thedentalguys.com, right?
No,
.net.
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 Oh, .net. I apologize.
TheDentalGuys.net. All this will
.net.
be on the show notes.
Yep.
You can pick it all up.
Yep. We're on YouTube, Facebook,
Yeah.
Twitter.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
if you get
You
bored,
guys-
come up to South Dakota sometime. We'll show you around.
Yeah.
We should.
We got
they should
these
speak-
presidents on this statue out back.
The dental guys should meet my referral network, like the study club, like that. Would you guys come up and talk to them about
Absolutely.
Sure, we would love to do that.
this? Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be so fun.
Well, yeah, we like this stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want them all to be the dental guys. That's my new
Alright.
deal. That's my new deal.
We'll cook you a
So,
steak and show you some presidents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Well,
we'll see it. We'll be seeing you down at Oral Reconstruction Foundation. I want to
Absolutely.
plug
Yeah,
you
we're coming down there.
because we're coming down to see you speak
Perfect.
And
there.
if you can
and
get us an interview with Tomas.
yeah, you can talk to Lincoln Vicious. We'd like to get him on the show.
Yeah, we'll go off air for a second. All right. From Podcast Studio 1B in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you at the next episode. Cheers.